Welcome to Share a Pint, where we tap into the craft beer scene. I'm Jerry Hulla, your host.
Today we're talking with Jim Bauckman from the Brewers Association of Maryland, otherwise known as BAM. Thanks for being on the show, Jim.
Thanks, Jerry. I'm very happy to be here, even under these very odd circumstances.
Absolutely. For our audience who don't know, explain all the things that BAM does for the Maryland brewing community.
So BAM is the trade association that represents the Maryland beer industry. The more than 120 breweries in the state are benefited by the work that we do, both legislatively and promotion-wise. We do our best to showcase Maryland beer as a quality product made by very quality people. Coming out of small and independent breweries, we want these products to stand up in the marketplace and to get beer consumers interested and excited.
Okay. Well, I've spoken with a lot of Maryland brewers during this pandemic, and we've talked about how they've adapted to survive. But across the board, they've given high praise for what BAM has done during this crisis. So share with us what BAM has accomplished during these last 4 months to assist Maryland brewers during this difficult time.
We can't take all the credit ourselves. We have done a lot of this work with our members. We do work on behalf of our members, but their support is crucial to what we are able to accomplish. The big things that stand out for what happened during the last couple of months that benefited our members directly were some executive orders that came out of the governor's office, allowing our members to have increased off-premise sale volumes. So we used to have a 288 fluid ounce maximum purchase per day at a Maryland brewery. That has since been lifted. So our members can now sell kegs to go, which wasn't an option in the past for a majority of our licensees. They can now sell multiple cases of beer to people, and they're able to fulfill, more and more crowler orders than they were before. What we're seeing there is that consumers are interested in coming in and kind of loading up or stocking up on beer that they feel they want to purchase in larger volumes. And it makes it a little bit more of a competitive landscape for our members to be able to sell those larger volumes. If a person can go to their retail packy right down the street and purchase 5 cases of beer, why shouldn't they be able to purchase 5 cases of beer from their local brewery? There have been some legislative answers for that, but I think we're seeing that the sky's not falling because they're given that opportunity. So that was the first big one, was this opportunity for our members to sell a little bit more volume to people who wanted to come in and minimize the amount of exposures they had going into public. Mm-hmm. The second big thing was the direct-to-consumer delivery option. So the governor offered for manufacturers of alcoholic beverages and restaurants and bars an opportunity to deliver goods directly to their consumer. So now a Maryland beer drinker can go out, directly order Maryland beer from their favorite brewery, and their brewery has the opportunity to bring that beer directly to their front door. So there's been delivery going on throughout the state now. There was some question at the beginning about how local jurisdictions and counties were supposed to interplay with all of this. But because of the executive order of the governor, we were able to make sure that throughout the state there are no issues and that our members are able to deliver fresh beer directly to the door of beer fans. And then the last big thing came out of a desire for our members to earn a little bit more reach throughout the state. So most of our members have very small distribution platforms. The majority of them only distribute in Maryland, only in local areas. We have a lot of members that self-distribute, and delivery is not always the best option for somebody out on the Eastern Shore to a place located in Western Maryland. So what we pushed for was the right for our members to be able to ship direct to consumer inside the state of Maryland. So as it stands, members of Maryland can ship out of the state as much as they want, with as much frequency as they want to, so long as they're shipping into a state that allows beer to be delivered. The state of Maryland does not allow beer to be delivered at all. So the governor's executive order said, hey, Maryland breweries may now ship to residents inside Maryland, which is a really cool thing. And it gives our members a little bit more reach to places that aren't really accessible in a 1.5 hour round trip or something, trying to do a delivery.
Yeah, no, that last one, when that kind of came across, and I really haven't seen a lot of breweries that have been using that one per se, but when that happened, I was like, this is a monumental moment in Maryland history to ship beer within the state. So
It's really kind of a neat thing. I mean, we've seen that there have been models in other states where beer shipment direct to consumer has not caused the retail world to dissolve. It's introduced some interesting competition to territories that may not get certain specific brands of beer or styles of beer. And, you know, there are some logistical challenges that a brewery has to overcome before they're able to start shipping. I mean, it's not as easy as just throwing it into a cardboard box and throwing it outside and having somebody come pick it up. I mean, you really have to think about packaging appropriately. You have to deal with the proper carrier. And carriers are, you know, trying to work their way through the legalese of how this works and how to best logistically handle alcohol and beer specifically. So I think just because it's available doesn't mean that it's going to be the first thing that breweries jump to do. That said, I think it's something that as an industry, we should be embracing this new opportunity and seeing what that means for the future. How can this change some revenue models for breweries down the road? What options does this give us for unique and engaging experiences from a brewery? Can a brewery now host a beer dinner that stretches across the state instead of having to have everybody join under one roof and ship beer to people to fulfill those pairings? Or is this something that they're going to have somebody come and pick up at the brewery? So I think this really kind of expands how the retail game for beer can be played, and also how the experience of visiting a brewery can be done.
Yeah. And to your point about the shipping challenges, we talked with Mark Osborne at Adroit Theory not long ago, and shipping's always been an option there in Virginia, but a lot of people weren't doing it. And he was, but it wasn't as large part of the model as obviously it's become with this pandemic. They've kind of shifted. The taproom model doesn't exist, so now they spin the numbers the other way and are distributing, worldwide. And he said just the new appreciation he has for everyone involved in that aspect of the industry after just the challenges that they've had to work through. And, FedEx is like, we can't do that. We can't ship beer. And he's like, yes, you can. It's always been a law. And, we could ship wine. We can't ship beer. And he's like, no, it's right here in the law. But from that to just, he said, dealing with people that don't know their shipping address or where they live, and just all kinds of challenges you would never think of for shipping. So I think your point's well taken, that just because it can be done doesn't mean it's a model that the breweries are going to jump into, but it is a nice option to have, like you said.
Well, and one of the biggest obligations that our members have, and one of the things that we constantly try to talk about, is the health and safety aspect of being an alcohol consumer and an alcohol manufacturer. We understand as an industry that we have an obligation to the community to ensure that we're not serving people underage. We're not serving people till the point of intoxication. And then beyond that, we take that seriously. And I think that one holdup that we have is, how do we age verify for a direct consumer shipment? There is a liability on behalf of the shipper to do that, and the courier. We need to ensure that the person who's placing that order, as an industry, we need to ensure that those people are over 21. And the courier should be making sure that to whomever they're delivering, they need to be able to verify on the other end as an adult who's there to receive that beer. So that's a challenge that we're working through. And I think we found some interesting solutions that are out there. And we'll see how that plays.
Well, you're kind of the perfect person to ask this. I mean, we talk with all the brewers that we've talked to. We kind of ask them what they think might stay in place with regards to these changes in the law. But you're probably a little bit closer and have a little more firsthand knowledge. My thought is that, again, if you've proven that the model can work, the delivery, the curbside, that kind of stuff, then why not maintain that afterwards? Not just say, well, people can come to your brewery now, they don't need it. Because, we all know it's going to take a while for a lot of people to feel really comfortable to be in a public setting. So why not give those sources of revenue to these industries and say, look, this is going to help support you until things return back to what they consider more normal when you have more people in the tap room. So how many of these things do you think will actually stay once we kind of get back to what the new normal is?
So there are a couple of good answers for this, just because it's all ethereal right now and nobody really knows what's going to happen. To use the most positive metaphor, it's going to be tough to put this genie back in the bottle, right? We have some magic going on here, and capping this back off is going to be a tough thing. And it's not just great for breweries and wineries and distilleries. This is great for restaurants and bars also. We have the ability for these businesses to put alcoholic beverages in a format that somebody can take away.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all been, offered through an executive directive from the governor.
Mm-hmm.
What we need to see is some kind of codification to solidify this, because once the state of emergency goes away, all of these provisions kind of wash up.
Mm-hmm.
The industry is definitely benefiting from it. And I think that what we would like to say is, hey, the answer is going to be that all of it's going to stay around because you can't get rid of it now. I don't think that's realistic. I know that there is some concern from local authorities. And when I say local authorities, here in Maryland, our counties each have their own liquor board.
Mm-hmm.
Liquor boards get some say regarding what happens in their jurisdictions with regard to sale and process of alcohol and all that kind of stuff. And they have some concerns. 12 weeks ago, we were not in a position where people were walking into a restaurant, buying a plastic container filled with a premixed cocktail that had a saran wrap top and a rubber band on it, and taking it out. It wasn't what anybody envisioned was going to be happening in Maryland. It wasn't what people expected, but now it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there are some sincere concerns that people could potentially drink while driving much easier using containers like this. You don't have a sealed top to worry about. You're not trying to pop a can open. And I think that those are things that we're going to have to discuss and talk about. Is there any evidence that that's happening? Can we prove that this has been a problem? If we can't, then I think that we may be looking at a new time where, hey, adults can be adults and they can be responsible with alcohol. And maybe we should see how that works. I know that our industry would wholly embrace the ability to keep direct-to-consumer shipping. We would love to see direct from a brewery delivery stay. And I think that we have also kind of proven that some of these limits that have been placed through legislation on volume per sale have only been placed there to make people feel good about something, but it doesn't actually achieve anything in terms of what's happening with the economics of the industry. So for breweries, like I said, it's 288 fluid ounces. Our business also represents the Maryland Distillers Guild, and they have a 3-bottle limit on a distillery sale. So those have been lifted as well. And I think that that just kind of makes the playing field a little bit more fair. It kind of levels it out for everybody, retailers and us as the manufacturing industries. And it keeps everybody in a place where there's still mutual respect. And I think that that's great. We're not saying anything about changing the lineup to the 3-tier system or trying to remove anybody from their position in what happens. I think that these two things can exist side by side.
Yeah, and I think those are good points. And then, the thing I think about, I've moved around a bit in my previous line of work with coaching, and I've seen a lot of different laws in different states, and like how much conversation happens between, let's say, Maryland with other states who have done some of these things or had some of the things in place for a while to say, what kind of things did you run into? What were your concerns? How were they? How were they addressed? I mean, when I was down in Texas, you have drive-through liquor stores. I mean, you literally drive your car in, and they'll put your beer in, and you can drive away. When I was in Louisiana, they have like drive-up daiquiri stands, and it's a closed container because it has the little paper top on the straw, but you drive away with it. And those are clearly models like you've outlined where people look at it and go, why would you do that? That's incredibly dangerous and irresponsible. But somehow things have been managed to be addressed to the point where they're doing them. So, do we want those types of extremes? No. But like you said, I think we want people to be adults and be treated like adults and not say just because something bad can happen doesn't mean it will happen.
And I totally understand the approach of being very conservative with how we approach alcohol. There's no argument that there are some sincere health concerns with alcohol consumption and addiction and things like that. And we're aware of that. We also understand that alcohol is a substance that people truly enjoy drinking, and they enjoy drinking because it's a fun thing to do in moderation. And we respect that and we promote that. And I think that we will continue to look for ways to make access to alcohol more responsible and more meaningful by having them joined with these experiences of going to a brewery and seeing what the business is doing. Now, unfortunately, we haven't had that ability for the last couple of months because it's been like waving at the guy through your window, and whoever's working in the tasting room will bring you your great beer. Yeah. So we'd like to definitely ensure that engagement remains. We want these businesses to be the pillars in the community that they are, but we want people to be able to access their products with as little in the way as we can.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, for people to keep in mind, because there's always going to be the people that jump forward with all the horrible things that could happen, and instead of understanding that for the most part people are very responsible and are going to treat this thing very seriously. I just look at hopefully that they don't repeal something like this too soon. I mean, I look at states like Florida and Texas and California and Pennsylvania and places that have kind of maybe moved a little faster than they should have to let people come back and physically be in tap rooms. And now they're realizing that that's creating a larger health problem, so they're reverting back. We just recently talked with Marcus at Weathered Souls in San Antonio, and they just recently went back to curbside only because of the spike in Texas. And so my fear is, we move into something like this too soon, we repeal some things that are going to help these breweries, then we have to go back. And like you said, it's always hard to put the genie back in the bottle, but man, once they do that, I don't know. It's a slippery slope, I think.
My presumption would be that if we were to let some of these things lapse at the executive order level, whenever that expires, and we don't have a legislative change, that there will be no second coming of this. I don't think that we would be able to go back into a situation where these businesses are in peril and pull these wonderful cards back out and say, hey, here are some options to help keep you solvent. Here are some ways to keep revenue coming through your doors. I think that there would be a lot more pushback to say, well, we can't let that happen again. Whichever way the political will is leaning, I think would probably be the one that wins. And that would be an unfortunate situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think that we're representing any kind of sincere problem. I don't think that there's anything posed that's truly dangerous right now. Everything that we're hearing from county jurisdictions is that, hey, we don't have any specific examples to point to, but we need to let you know that these are our concerns, and they're valid concerns.
Absolutely.
But I think that until we have some real evidence or real data saying that there have been issues, that we're going to continue to move forward with thinking that we would like to see some of this stuff change in the future.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. One of BAM's biggest sources of revenue in terms of fundraising is the Maryland Craft Beer Festival. It was held in May in Frederick, but unfortunately became a virtual event called SofaSippin. I attended the event. I thought it was very well done, from the topics that were discussed to the musical acts. You ran it from behind the scenes. So talk about what went into the planning of adapting a craft beer festival into an online event, and then how you felt it was received by everyone.
That's a really good challenge for our team to have had to face, and we faced it pretty quickly. So you asked a couple of minutes ago about what kind of conversation goes on between us and other states about how legislation gets pushed, and maybe who we can follow behind in terms of an example for things that have happened. And when all of this started, the Brewers Association National Guild did a very good job of bringing all of our members together, the member organizations throughout the country. So I think it's 49 organizations that represent breweries throughout the country. And these guilds gathered together, and we talked about what these challenges might look like. Obviously, the first ones were going to be, how do we handle getting revenue into our members' pockets? How do we handle making sure that we don't have an entire industry wash up? And what examples can we point to that say that these things can work? And it was like dominoes. One by one, you'd see a governor say, hey, I got to have bars open because all of these bar businesses mean too much to our economy. We can't close them down. And then as soon as you hear that, you hear a guy at a brewery say, hey, we're a brewery. What can we do to stay open? Our business models aren't really all that different if you're talking about non-restaurant bars. What can we do here? If we're selling alcohol, they're selling alcohol, what can happen? And then all of a sudden you'd start to see it fall. And then once really interesting things happened, like curbside pickup, direct-to-consumer delivery, it happened very fast, because I think governors around the country realized this is a really good way to go. It's going to mitigate our options for people to get in contact with COVID-19. And it helped that our Governor Larry Hogan, is the director, I think, of the Governors Association across the country. So once people saw him doing some very interesting things, I think they may have felt, hey, there's some comfort here and some ability to do some stuff that might be a little outside the box. And we're fortunate for that. Mm-hmm. So that's a very long intro to what I want to set up about the Craft Beer Festival. So I said all of that because we worked with this guilds group through the guidance of Acacia Coast at the BA to come up with some really creative ways to supplement what was going to happen with events. I think everybody saw the writing on the wall right away. Events were not going to be happening for a while. And for those of us who rely on events, these nonprofit organizations like the Brewers Association Maryland, without an event, we have no revenue stream. I mean, we have dues paying members, but we try to keep their dues to a minimum. To us, an engaged membership with more members is more important than members that are paying a ton of money to be a part of the association. Mm-hmm. And I think that the board feels the same way, and they've always done their best to keep the barrier to entry very low for breweries and ensure that through their offerings and through the experiences that we provide, we're able to generate enough revenue to make sure that the business of running the organization can continue. So we looked at a couple of examples coming out of Arizona and New York, Idaho. A couple of people had done some really interesting virtual engagements, things that included packaging beers from a couple of breweries and shipping them to consumers. Well, that wasn't an option for us. So what options do we have? And if anybody's attended the Maryland Craft Beer Festival in Frederick, it's a great event. We see 3,000 to 4,000 people on this urban creek setting, which is wonderful. It's in a historic environment. Yeah. And we have this really great interplay with local music and beer. And we wanted to carry on that feeling. So for SofaSippin, we reached out to some partners that we had been working with at Delfest, which is a big bluegrass festival out in Cumberland, Maryland every year, and asked them kind of what they might see happening. And they shared with us that they were considering putting live video that was recorded from previous festivals up as content for a festival this year because they knew they were going to have to postpone their Memorial Day date. Mm-hmm. And we started kicking around, myself and our events director, Abby Casarella, and our strategy officer, Kelly Dudek. We're all big fans of live music. How can we get this music component to work? So we started reaching out to people that we know in the music industry locally who also have a pretty good following. And I tell you what, Jerry, these folks came out of the woodwork to offer us high quality video, really great recordings, and all just asked, hey, can you put a tip jar up for us, like a Venmo or a PayPal, and we'll give you all the music. You don't have to pay us anything, but we want to see you guys do something successful. So we had a great lineup. We had the Plate Scrapers, we had Scribe, Funk Buddha, and then to top it all off, we had Chris Jacobs, who's like this huge name in singer-songwriter work around here. He's very well known, and we were able to bring him in and did a great thing. I think it was really cool for us and unique for us to be able to take these pre-recorded musical experiences and drop them in between this really cool beer festival. For the beer festival aspect of it, because everybody's listening about beer and not about music, we kind of went throughout the state and said, hey, we want to have panel discussions that talk about these styles of beer. Mm-hmm. We want it to be representative of what we think the market's looking at. We want people to be able to ask questions to you like they would if they were standing in line at your tent at the Maryland Craft Beer Festival. And we want you to be engaged and provide a voice that's going to give the information that people want to hear. So our breweries that participated sent owners, they sent brewers, and they basically just jumped on a meeting with us and we just had a talk. Let's talk about hazy IPAs. Let's go. Boom, boom, boom. We had our friend Chris Sands from the Uncapped podcast help us moderate, and it could not have gone any better. I think that we had a lot of really great engagement from people throughout the day. We did not charge any fee for people to attend. What we asked were for people to become producers of the event, and we put out a roll of producer credits ahead of time that people could pre-purchase, and then we ran credits at the end of the event with all those producers listed. And then throughout the event, we gave the option for people to basically go out and make donations to us directly. And we ended up making a little bit of money for the association. Definitely a far cry from what we would have made having an in-person event, but it was encouraging for us to know that the beer enthusiast in Maryland but still feels that our association is worth supporting.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, I thought it was very well done, and it seemed to be very well received, on a user end. So I was curious from somebody behind the scenes orchestrating everything, if it was the case, and it's good to hear that it was. So that helped a little bit, but explain how BAM is surviving with this particular unexpected loss of revenue. Is there anything that you guys have tried to come up with to plan, additional things that are going to replace it or help supplement it? How are you guys staying afloat?
Well, we're still trying to figure that out. This is a real hairy situation kind of for our association. We are in a pretty good financial place, fortunately. Not a lot of associations around the country have that luxury, so we're very fortunate for that. We kind of, if we could have planned Corona any better, I think we would all be like the smartest people in the room. It came on the heels of a really great legislative session for the brewing industry. Maryland's beer industry saw some really big changes last year. Out of those big changes, we had a couple of agreements with the wholesalers and the retailers that we weren't going to be pushing big sweeping changes again for a little while, because we felt like we got the industry to a place where we're comfortable with what our members wanted, and we didn't feel like we just needed to keep going in there to introduce new stuff. If things pop up that are obviously important to our members, we're going to go to bat for that. I think that we may be seeing some of those things on the horizon. But we didn't have a legislative agenda that was stacked to the ceiling that was going to require a ton of investment and lobbying effort and stuff like that. So that was a good thing for us. But to supplement what's going on, we're still trying to determine whether or not we're going to have even basic internal fundraising available. What we do every year is the Maryland Craft Beer Competition. We're still trying to figure out whether or not that's going to happen. We know that GABF is happening as a virtual event. Right. I hope that members of the BA are going to feel that competition still carries the weight that it did when it was the big celebration in Denver or wherever they had GABF. But I think that we're working on a way to try to get our judges together. We use a panel of BJCP judges. We have a guy named Phil Sides who helps us direct the event. He's a very highly ranked national judge from BJCP. And we just want to make sure that whatever we do, we're doing it in a way that ensures the competition is still fair, ensures that all the beer is treated appropriately. So we're not real sure that we want to be shipping cases of beer to people in whatever temperature it might be on that UPS truck or FedEx truck. And we want to make sure that any beer that's entered and judged is the beer that it's intended to be, and that our members get something out of this competition. All of that said, we can't do that if we can't keep judges safe. So that's going to be our first priority, is making sure that there's a safety parameter that everybody can be satisfied with and feel comfortable with. And then we have a couple of other events that we're still trying to work out. How do we recreate an event like Revive that we do each year, where we take the winners from the Maryland Craft Beer Competition and pair them with local restaurants and have it be a walk around tasting of beer and food pairing. The place where we did it was a beautiful shrine out in Ellicott City. We've done it for 2 years in a row. People love this event. It's a little bit more high dollar. It's a little bit more dress up. It's kind of like Savor in the sense that it's a food and beer event. The beauty here is that you're meeting the brewers and you're meeting the chefs from the restaurants. So you're really getting that engagement about why did you select this pairing and all that kind of great stuff. So the education aspect is high. And because it's a smaller venue, it's very exclusive. We can only fit a couple of hundred people there. We're not talking 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people like we do at our big festivals. We're talking a really intimate, great event. How can we do that in this age? Those are kinds of the questions that we're trying to figure out.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, Jim, talk a little bit about your role specifically at BAM, and tell us about Fermented Friday that you host online.
So my role at BAM is I work for a company called Grow and Fortify. We're actually hired by BAM on a multi-year contract to manage the association. I'm the communications director there. Prior to this, I actually was a marketing and sales director for Monocacy Brewing Company in Brewers Alley in Frederick, Maryland. Mm-hmm. I'd seen the work that the trade association did for its members. And after about 8.5 years there, I was very interested in seeing how I could translate my skills from selling beer and marketing beer to selling an industry and marketing an industry. And fortunately, I'd had a great relationship with the team at Grow and Fortify prior to that. And when a position opened that they thought would fit, they actually reached out to me and asked if I may have some interest. So we talked a little bit, and I came on board just over 2 years ago. And it was a great move. I learned a whole lot more about the ability of this industry to really make an impact on our state's economy and what we can do here. And that's kind of what got us here. So at Grow and Fortify, like I said, we represent the Brewers Association. We represent the Maryland Distillers Guild. And the whole organization started because of a contract that was with the Maryland Wineries Association. So we actually have all 3 alcohol manufacturing trade associations as our client, which is great because we get to see the parallels in the industry. But we also get to think about how we can move all 3 of these industries forward at once and really put Maryland on the map as an alcohol manufacturing state and show the quality and diversity of what these folks are all doing. To explore that more frequently and to get it in front of the consumer more frequently, we talked about finding ways to engage our members with the consumer during this time. Retail tastings kind of disappeared, so you didn't have that Friday opportunity to go into your favorite local liquor store and talk to Sarah from Milk House or, Julie from Denizens. Like, nobody was stopping in to do a can tasting or a bottle tasting. They were all busy running their businesses and trying to figure out how to keep people employed, keep the lights on, and get beer out to the people that needed it. So what we came up with was a 1-hour engagement once a week. Basically, I booked out Wednesday through Friday, Wednesday for wine, spirits got Thursday, Friday we would do beer. Basically make it a happy hour. People are stuck at home, nothing to do. Why not start at 3 o'clock in the afternoon? Maybe it's a little early for a happy hour, but you know what? Zoom meetings can get a little tedious throughout the day, so maybe 3 o'clock is a great time to stop.
Yeah.
And we bring those makers on. We bring the brewers on. We bring the brewery owners on, and we talk to them. What's your philosophy about making beer? What started your business and what got you interested? And my goal with this whole talk is that these people who operate and run these businesses are so cool. They have such great stories. They have such an open mind about how they want to help their communities and be a real true positive impact on their community, that I needed these people to be able to tell their stories to the drinker. And what we ended up with is this great series of videos where it's a chat, either one-on-one or 2-on-1. Sometimes we have 2 breweries on just to talk. And they share their beers. They share what they're excited about. They talk about the local artists they're using to build their labels. They talk about the local agriculture that is impacting the decisions they're making in the brew house. And then they just talk about anything that comes to mind that has to do with their beer. And it's been awesome. We had our first guest was Judy Neff at Checker Spot Brewing in Baltimore. And she ran through an awesome lineup of great beer, told us all these wonderful stories about how important it was to use their local ingredients. And it's refreshing to know that there's a lot more behind this than just, hey, we're making something to send somebody home with to enjoy a beer. Right. It's really a big deal. Yeah.
Well, she's a pretty smart lady. We've had her husband Rob on the show a couple of times. Once we got him early and talked, and then like I said, kind of through May and June, we were going back and revisiting with past guests and saying, hey, how are you handling the pandemic? And then what can we do to help you? And so we had Rob back on. But yeah, she's a smart lady, and fun. So it's pretty cool. I love those guys down there. And then, you've got character. Ty, I mean, come on. When is an hour with Ty not time well spent? It is hysteria. I mean,
Well, and I always appreciate that Ty decides to tell crazy stories about me when we're out.
He does wait, doesn't he? He just waits for this opportunity.
It was awesome. And it's funny because it used to be that when he and I would go out and we'd be at a joint tasting or something, I would bring it up because I always thought it was I'd get a kick out of that story that he told. If you don't know what story I'm referring to,
yeah, we're gonna have to refer our viewers to go check it out.
Yeah, Fermented Friday, but
absolutely,
it was a good time. Yeah, what I liked most about having Judy as the first guest for Fermented Friday is Checker Spot's grand opening was actually my first out of office event for the Brewers Association. So I didn't start until Monday. the Saturday before they opened, I actually went out to their grand opening on behalf of the Brewers Association and was able to celebrate that with them. And one of their brewers, Stephen Marsh, and I go way back.
Yeah.
So it's a great time.
The great cask whisperer from his thing. Yeah, no, they are great people, and like you said, there's so many great people in the craft beer industry. That's one of the things I thought was interesting and wanted to talk a little bit about Fermented Friday, because it's a little more in line in the type of things that we're doing here and what we wanted with Share a Pint. We wanted people to be able to share their interesting stories, unique stories you don't necessarily get by putting something up on a website and hope somebody reads, or that they're going to get from it. It's just, there's so many great stories, and who doesn't love a good story? I mean, I've had people that have listened that are like, I'm not really into craft beer, but when we talk with Jake at Smoketown for our first episode, he's got a ghost story. Who doesn't want to hear a good ghost story? I mean, come on. So yeah, it's pretty good. We'll definitely have some people check that out. The Grow and Fortify, I want to go back to for a second, because I want people to really understand its role in connection with BAM. And the Maryland brewing community, as well as, like you said, wineries and distilleries, kind of really help people understand the importance of Grow and Fortify.
Grow and Fortify is a company that was founded by our CEO, Kevin Addix, as a way to expand the team that was representing Maryland's alcohol manufacturing interests. So Kevin was hired by the Maryland Wineries Association almost 20 years ago, I think, maybe just a little bit over that, to manage their association's organization, essentially. How do you lobby appropriately for local and state laws? How do you put on events that make money for the association and keep the promotional aspect in front of the consumer? How do you organize things like wine trails and directories for members? And those were all things that Kevin was working on, and he decided, I've got a small team. I think that I can start a company doing this and we can expand what we're doing. And he founded Grow and Fortify. And from Grow and Fortify, he approached the Brewers Association. Actually, the Brewers Association of Maryland approached Kevin and asked Kevin to consider putting in a bid for representation. So the Brewers Association of Maryland was all member driven, had a board. They hired on an executive director. But they needed, I think, a little bit more organization than one person was able to provide. And they've known of Kevin, obviously, through his work with Maryland Wineries Association and some joint efforts that have happened between beer and wine legislatively. Mm-hmm. So it was a really sensible move when BAM offered to have Kevin come in and present what Grow and Fortify could do. So following that, they got the contract. I think it was 2014, 14, maybe 15. Whenever it was, they got the contract, moved in, started rolling with BAM, started putting on the events on behalf of the Brewers Association of Maryland. And then about a year and a half later, they founded the Maryland Distillers Guild because the distilling industry was starting to crop up here in the state. We're working on some new ventures now. We're working on propping up the Maryland Hemp Coalition. So we're working with hemp processors, growers, and manufacturers here in the state of Maryland, trying to get some legislation written to protect their industry and make sure that they're able to grow and flourish here in the land of pleasant living. And we continue to work with value-added agriculture producers and manufacturers throughout the state. Our goal is to focus on Maryland agriculture, make sure that it remains profitable for the families and the business owners, and to continue making great products that have a Made in Maryland tag on them.
That's great. Well, you touched on this a little bit earlier, but talk about what things BAM are working on in the coming months, whether it be events that you're sponsoring or supporting or things that are going on.
We are still working on trying to determine what the rest of our event schedule will look like for the year. I imagine that we will have some more virtual engagements coming up for people to come out and support. It's on the books right now that we have the Baltimore Craft Beer Festival, the sister event to the Maryland Craft Beer Festival, scheduled for early November. We're kind of in one of those places where we're going to have to make a decision really quickly because we need to start to promote that effort and sell tickets before the event. But we don't want to do that if it's going to be a risk for attendees or for our members. So we're really kind of waiting to see what's happening. Some of the conversation that's out there is that we can expect big spikes in infection and at a rate that we didn't expect to see, 3-4 times what we're already seeing. And that would be unacceptable for us to put anybody in harm's way because of an event. So keep an eye out for updates about that. If you've been looking out for any feedback or outgoing communication about the Baltimore Craft Beer Festival, we're really playing everything slow right now just because we're not sure what's going to happen. And then we just finished our 2020 Tech Summit, which also went to a virtual experience. So that was more for our members. And what happened there is we had some business topics that were covered related to technical brewing, related to the marketing and operation of your brewery, and related to local agriculture. And the goal there was to provide our members with an educational opportunity to spend a day with each other, ask questions, learn about what's going on in their industry, and try to promote the quality of beer that's being produced here in the state. So we did that with our technical committee, and we had a lot of success. We had a lot of support from Hop Havoc, who is a hop producer and broker here in the state of Maryland. So we were excited to have them help us out. And then, I don't know, we're working every day to try to determine what the future is going to hold and how we're going to get there. We want to make sure that Maryland beer stays a focus of the beer drinker here in the state. We know there are some sensitivities to pricing of things right now, and everybody's in this situation together. We're not standing here as our own industry saying, hey, we're the ones that are being impacted, because we know that everybody is. We know that a large majority of our consumers are impacted very negatively by what's happening in the world around us. And we just want to make sure that whatever we offer is going to be something that's valuable to them, is something that they can enjoy, and is an experience that's worth sharing with their friends and family.
Well, Jim, I want to thank you for your time. Please give everyone at BAM our best and thank them for all they do and continue to do for Maryland brewers. And then I look forward to a time, hopefully in the near future, when you and I can share a pint in person.
Jerry, I would appreciate that very much. I very, very much welcome you inviting me on. I cannot say thank you enough. It's been a very trying time for all of us to get our message out there, and having people like you out there supporting the industry nationwide is great for us. I do want to say that if anybody's interested in visiting marylandbeer.org, they can do so to learn all about our industry, learn about what we're doing here in the state, and keep up with our wonderful group of members.
Sounds good. Well, I appreciate it, Jim. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jerry.
Share a Pint is released bi-weekly on Friday mornings and can be found at shareapintpodcast.com. Follow us on Twitter at share_pint. Show notes for this episode are available at shareapintpodcast.com. Music for the show, Groundwork, provided by Kevin MacLeod, and can be found online at incompetech.com. Share a Pint is made possible by help from the Community Media Center of Carroll County. Associated with the craft beer industry and have an interesting story you'd like to share on a future episode? Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach us at shareapintpodcast.com or email us at jerry@shareapintpodcast.com. Until the next time we share a pint, I'm Jerry Holla. Prost.